Hello, everyone. It has been some time since I've done one of these horror stories, so forgive me for this. Every year around this time, I like to read a few horror stories from across the internet. Mostly my stories come from creepypasta, but if you have a story you would like me to read that's relatively short and scary, please let me know in the comments. Also, subscribe. I do this every year in October, and if you would like these stories, more of these stories from me, I can do more on their own channel. If you would like that as well. Now, let's get on with the story. The Porcelain Mask by Match Ulsik. Marcel tightened his last cords on his hiking backpack. He stepped back, admiring how neatly he packed the bag. Every year, he and a group of friends went on a 3-day expedition into the mountains, and this year he couldn't wait. The fresh air, the peaceful sunrise, and the morning dew always invoked a sense of calm in Marcel. It was his temporary escape from reality. The never-ending lectures, the nerve-wracking exams. "Ah, that's it," Marcel muttered after he throwing his knapsack on his back. Early the next morning, Marcel and the rest of the expedition met at the main train station in Prague. "Maso, you still haven't bought the new backpack. Your back will thank you," Julie teased. "Am I the last one?" Marcel ignored Julie's question. Julie, Chenda, Annetta, and Marcel had known each other since high school. All of them are now college students, but the tradition of the annual trip has endured. This year, the group is heading to the Eagle Mountains, first by train, but from Vamperk, only on foot. "Next time you'll be pulling the tops," Chandra grumbled gruffly when the group arrived at the shelter they were planned to spend the night. Chandra didn't talk much, but when it comes to complaining, he never shuts up, as Julie would say. Sometimes Marcel wondered why he even went on these hikes with them every year and kept annoying the whole group with his sullen remarks. They found themselves at a clapboard arrangement where travelers normally merely take a break and carry on with their march. The sun was slowly sinking behind the horizon. Annetta and Marcel were just setting up their tops under the shelter when they heard Julie's startled scream. "What are you yelling about?" Chenda said. Julie stood there flabbergasted. "We... I think I saw someone over there," she stammered, raising her index finger toward the deep woods. Annetta rolled her eyes. She collapsed onto the top and looked at the screen on her cell phone. "Maybe it was a leprechaun," Chenda remarked, laughing at his joke. "There's no signal," Annette sighed, tucking her phone in her backpack and slipping it into her sleeping bag. "Come on, let's go to sleep. Annette's already kicked the sack," Marcel said. Julie was still staring between the spruces as if expecting something to emerge from the darkness at any moment. Nightmares had been bothering Marcel for a long time. That's why he never slept much. On top of that, it was only chilly from the fog and spreading around the makeshift campsite. He stretched and awkwardly dug himself out of his sleeping bag. Julie's sleeping bag was empty and the rest of the expedition was still asleep. He pulled a bread roll out of the backpack, spreaded melted cheese on it, and sat down on the bench under the shelter. Chenda woke up a few minutes later and sat down next to Marcel. "Where's Julie?" Chenda asked absently. "She must have gone to the bathroom." "I don't know." Marcel threw up his hands. When Annetta got up and the group grew nervous. "Hey, come on, try to call her," Chenda urged Annetta. "How am I supposed to do that if there's no signal, genius?" They waited another hour. Julie was still missing. Maybe we should go to the police," Annetta finally suggested. Neither of the boys had a better idea, so they packed up the campsite and headed back towards town. Even if you don't have any signal, you can always call 911. Even if you don't have any signal, it still goes through, but it's whatever. Good part of the story. Just thought I'd clarify. The omnipresent fog shrouded the landscape so that they could barely see a step. Everyone was silent. They pondered what could have happened to Julie, and scenarios of varying levels of believability formed in their heads. "Shit." Chenda broke the silence as he tripped over a wooden bench. "I don't believe it," Annetta breathed. They found themselves at the wooden structure the group they used as shelter from the elements last night. Jeez, we're right back where we came from, Marcel said out loud as what everyone had figured out by then. We'll never get to the police station like this. Let's make a line and search the woods around here. Annette decided. They took their backpacks and kept out their flashlights and set off toward the depths of the forest a little after dark. Julie woke up. Her head was pounding. She could see the twinkles in front of her eyes and she wanted to vomit. She found herself lying on the floor in a dim hall. Only a single torch was installed in the concrete wall, giving Julie a sense of where she was. A cellar. The dampness, the rats in the corner of the room told her. Tears welled up in her eyes as she felt she needed to scream, but the rag in her mouth prevented it. She tried standing up, but the ropes on her legs and arms wouldn't let her. It's just a nightmare, nothing more, Julie tried to convince herself. Panic clouded her thinking. Her heart was pumping fast and loud. Julie screamed through the gag, trying desperately to cry for help, but her howling was soon cut off by the voice. A voice barely audible, unnatural, whose almost childlike tones sent shivers down her spine. I'm going to make you beautiful. A figure appeared before Julie. It was an average height, messy brown hair, gray hoodie, and jeans. A white porcelain mask adorned with pouty red lips and red painted cheeks gave the man or woman a disturbing impression. The person's eyes could not be seen. Julie tried in vain to make out the pupils, but all she saw was endless darkness. It watched Julie admiring of her like a work of art, while the girl struggled desperately with the ropes. It took a pair of scissors from a small tool table, snipped idly in the air a couple of times. It began to cut Julie's hair. The girl cried and screamed as she tried to resist, but soon her scalp was naked. It pulled a small tube out of her jeans pocket and splattered lipstick inexpertly across her lips and cheek on the girl's face resembled a porcelain mask the mysterious kidnapper wore. Suddenly, the creature turned sharply as if it had heard something from its crouch. It stood both feet and walked away. Meanwhile, the trio had started falling into despair. There's no point in this, Chenda said resignedly. He had been combing up the forest all night with no sign of Julie. Is that a church? Annette asked rhetorically when she saw the ruins of what had been a place of worship. In the middle of a forest, a white plastered structure rose majestically through the trees, creating a sharp contrast with the ubiquitous timber encircling the building like a royal god protects their monarch. Something felt off, eerie. Annetta, Chenda, and Marcel silently approached the molten woody door. Let's check it out, shall we? Marcel didn't even wait for an answer and walked right in. Their flashlights revealed a crimson, moth-eaten red carpet, and occasionally accompanied by amber pews alongside. A golden altar at the end of the rug dominated the room, a church like any other, they all thought, until they took a good look at the huge paintings that adored the walls of the nave. I remember the paintings my grandmother used to take me to church services, Annetta explained, but they certainly didn't have these masks on them. As soon as Annette finished speaking, both boys realized what was special about the paintings. All the saints had their faces covered with white porcelain masks. Hearing human voices from afar, Julie screamed as loud as she could as the gag in her mouth would allow. She let out a wild, guttural wail, hoping that her desperate cries would be heard by someone, anyone. Did you hear that? Marcel asked the others, not expecting an answer. Immediately, he ran into the rusty metal hatch he noticed at the corner of the room. He opened it. Stone steps appeared before his eyes. He didn't hesitate a second to climb inside. Annetta looked at Chenda uncertainly, and he managed to shrug his shoulders as she followed Marcel. Chenda had already stepped one foot inside when he noticed movement. He turned slowly. Directly behind him there it was. I'll make you beautiful. Marcel jumped off at the last step and thoroughly scanned the dungeon with his flashlight. The room was empty, musty, full of rodents running from the light. In the corner of the cellar, he discovered a kind of workbench next to it. Julie? Marcel asked uncertainly. The bald woman in ropes and the grotesque markage on her face only answered by shouting unintelligibly into the rag stuck in her mouth. Marcel and Annetta slowly freed Julie from the ropes. We must get away before it comes back, Julie blurted out as soon as Marcel untied the piece of cloth. Where did Chenda go? Shit, Marcel muttered and rushed up the stairs. It's too late. Chenda's dead body lay on the floor, and his eyes stared absently at the ground. Lying limp on the tiled floor, scissors embedded between his shoulder blades. Fuck, 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 Marcel yelled. It's not fucking true. Water welled up in his eyes as he wanted to scream and to curse. The girls burst into tears, desperate in utter shock. They knew there was no escape. They could find nothing but damnation on this godforsaken, bizarre place. The trio sobbed over the deceased friend until Lynetta noticed a figure standing at the entrance. I'll make you all beautiful, the masked stranger expelled its disgusting, almost childlike tone of voice. Annette, Julie, Marcel panicked, instinctively rushing to the windows on the other side of the church, terror in their eyes. Marcel jumped through the broken window, followed by Julie, and son of a... Annette cursed after she vaulted over the windowsill. She tried to stand, but she instead hissed like a trapped prey. I think I broke my leg, Annette sobbed. The creature with the porcelain mask approached the window. Marcel and Julie looked at each other. They didn't have to say a word. They both knew it was too late. They made their escape. Where the fuck are you going? Help me, please! Please help me! Annette choked on her desperation. Marcel and Julie ignored the cries that echoed through the woods and kept running until the screaming ceased. Marcel and Julie sprinted as fast as they could. They pushed their way through the never-ending thick fog, occasionally interrupted by skinny trees. They stopped at a clearing. The trees were no longer growing. Instead, a wide plain spread out in front of the pair. Both Julie and Marcel stopped in disgusted amazement. This is hell, Marcel whispered. The clearing was filled with crosses as far as the mortal eye could see, the large wooden crosses on them. Bodies, each of them naked, hairless. Each lifeless, crucified corpse had its face painted red across its lips and cheeks. Why? Marcel stammered without taking his eyes off the gruesome scene for a second. He was in such a trance he didn't even notice the white porcelain mask slowly walking up on him from behind. Led by pure instinct, Julie grabbed a large rock she found on the ground and threw it with all her strength. The creature slumped to the ground. Cautiously, she approached the mysterious kidnapper. She examined him. The masked killer who had murdered two of her friends only moments before had lay there motionless, of all the strength had drained from him. Curiosity overcame Julie as she removed the mask. Beneath it, she found a reasonably average face. A man in his early 30s, and she sensed an inviting warmth as she picked up the mask in her hand. Arousing an uncanny desire, she put on the mask, and all of a sudden, Julie understood. All the pieces of the puzzle connected, and she knew it made sense to her and realized what beauty is. What kind of pig can do something so horrible? Marcel asked, obvious from his surroundings, shivering in raw horror. Julie walked over to him. She stood by his side, silent for a moment. Can't you see how beautiful they are? I'll make you beautiful too. Credits, Matej Ulsek. Well, that was a creepy one. I actually did like that one. That was very, very good, Mr. Ulsek. Hopefully I said that right. I'm probably butchering it. But anyway, I hope you guys have enjoyed that as much as I did. And I hope you guys like the video and subscribe. And hopefully I will see you in the next horror story reading. Happy hunting.